which is an amendment to the zoning ordinance, so that one parcel of land, 15.2 acres owned by TCA LLC, 212 Langley Road, changes the zoning classifications from R1 and C2 general commercial to R6 multifamily residential. That will be a public hearing tonight, and you will be free to speak at that public hearing. If your name is on here, I will not call under public comments. I'll wait until the public hearing. We also have two public hearings. One is for the ordinance 2020-11, which is the general operating budget for the county. That's second reading. We also have ordinance 2020-12, which also sets a levy of taxes for the 3 school districts within Greenwood County, and that will be a public hearing. So those 4 items will be on public hearing. Let's see. Langley Road, Langley Road, Langley Road, Langley Road, Langley Road, Langley Road, Langley Road. There's one person on here that did not say Langley Road. Eddie Coleman.
Langley Road.
Langley Road. I don't see anyone on here that's not Langley Road. So there's nobody else.
I'm here for the first one.
For the first one. Okay, but you're not on here on public comments. You'll be on public hearing. Yeah. I won't use the public comments. We'll just have the public hearings, and you're welcome to speak at that point in the agenda. It is 4 o'clock, and it is time for me to call the Greenwood County Council regular meeting for Tuesday, June the 2nd, to order, and to tell you that in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act, the date, the time, the location, and the agenda of this meeting has been posted on the front entrance of the Greenwood County Courthouse and has also been posted on the front entrance of the Greenwood County Library. A copy of that agenda has been made available to the media and also has been posted on the county's website. With that being said, I'm going to ask Council Vice Chairman Chuck Moats to give our invocation, which will be followed by our Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand with me.
Certainly, if there ever was a time for prayer in our nation, now is that time. So let's join together. Our Father God, we cry out for help this afternoon, needing your presence and your strength. For months we have battled against the ravages of a new coronavirus. And now another virus. Not a new one, Lord, but one that has plagued our nation for over 400 years. One that manifests itself through a racism that demeans, belittles, ignores, and is deaf to the cries and pleas of many African Americans. Lord, you have been our help in ages past. And now more than ever, we need your guidance and your strength. Lord, we ask you to help us see one another as valued members of the human race. Help us to see one another as your children, created in your image. Help us to recognize and confess the blindness we too often have to the reality around us. Lord, show us how to root out the often hidden yet present attitudes that degrades other humans, that fosters indifference and harbors animosity toward those who are different. Oh God, our prayer tonight is simple. Give us the ears of Jesus to hear the cries of frustration and bitterness. Give us the eyes of Jesus to see the disparity so prevalent in the midst of far too many. And give us the heart of Jesus to love our neighbor as ourselves. Lord, give us a new vision tonight for our nation and our community. And let it begin with us. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk. I'm talking right now. Has anyone submitted any letters in advance that they would like to be read into the record?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Let me say welcome to each and every one of you to our meeting. Many of you were here last meeting, and we welcome you back to this meeting, and appreciate you being here, taking your time to come and to provide us with your input regarding matters on our agenda. Council, you have been provided a copy of the minutes for May 19, 2020 regular meeting and May 26, 2020 special call meeting. If there are no changes, I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved, Chairman.
I heard Mr. Lane and Ms. Childs. No other comments, all in favor, and those minutes are approved. And Mr. Templeton, you'll have to make your voice vote.
I approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. As you notice, we have 5 people sitting here. We have Mr. Templeton, who is by laptop, and Mr. Allison is not present tonight, so there will be 6 members voting. We are, our first item of business is a public hearing. That public hearing I read just a minute ago, but I'll read it again for the record. And let me say this before I enter the public hearing. I think I'm talking loud. The reason I talk loud is because this room sometimes can be difficult to hear. So when you come and speak to us, we expect you to raise your voice too, okay? Because there's people in the back of the room who want to hear what you've got to say. Sometimes these microphones don't pick up very well. So if you will, and that's my phone right there. Sorry. If you will speak up, then it will help everyone. Our first public hearing is ordinance 2020-09, which amends the Greenwood County zoning ordinance 13-86, so that one parcel of land, 0.97 acres, owned by CJJS LLC, located at 208 Bypass 25 South, is changed from R1 Single Family Residential to C2 General Commercial. This is a public hearing. Is anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this ordinance? And when you do this, you have your name and your address and all of that. So since we don't have that tonight, I'll ask you to identify yourself and what your address is in Greenwood County.
Okay, my name is Bubba Harvin. I live at 405 Hammond Road in Greenwood, and I represent the owner of this property, Conrad Leo. If y'all recall, this at one time was the parsonage for the old Wesleyan Church on the bypass. Back in 2014, I sold it to Mr. Leo, and he had an insurance office there for 2.5, maybe 3 years. He closed his office down and took a job with another insurance agency, and about that time, his daughter moved back to town, needed a place to live. So he had this old parsonage, which was his office, and he thought it'd be a good place for his daughter. So he moved her in there, not really realizing, I don't think at the time, he could not use a C2 zoning for a residence. So long story short, he rezoned it back to R1 at that time, so his daughter could live there. She lived there a couple of years, and after she moved out, lo and behold, he sold his personal home. So then he moved in to the house, so it served him well. But he moved in for a little over a year, and about 6 months ago, he found the home that he had been looking for. So he has purchased the home and moved out of his old office into his new home, and has asked us to market the property. And you know, I think it's clearly, in my eyes anyway, you know, certainly highest and best uses is commercial. I think on the entire 4-lane bypass from Cambridge Avenue to Highway 10, there's only one residence, I think, on the eastern side of the town down toward Highway 10, and that's the only residence that I know of. Other than that, you've got the high school, the soccer fields, some apartments, a salon, storage facilities. So I think it's certainly a reasonable ask. And again, the same council, I don't know if it's the same council, but back in 2014 when he purchased it, we had to have it rezoned in. from R1 to C2. So we're just asking to go back and rezone it to C2. And I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Thank you, sir. Anyone else here that would like to speak in favor of this rezoning request? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this rezoning request? Hearing none, I will close that public hearing, and I will ask the planning director one question. What was the recommendation of the planning board?
It was recommendation of approval.
Okay. Council, you have heard the comments in the public hearing. You have heard an explanation by our staff at earlier meetings. What is your pleasure on ordinance 2020-09?
I'll move we accept the recommendation.
Motion by Mr. Moats, second by Ms. Spencer. Any questions or comments? Are you ready to vote? All in favor of this rezoning request being approved on second reading, raise your right hand. Mr. Templeton? Aye. Aye. That is 6-0. The second reading is adopted. Our next public hearing is ordinance 2020-10, which amends the Greenwood County zoning ordinance so that one parcel of land, 15.28 acres, owned by TCA LLC, located at 212 Langley Road in Greenwood, SC, changes the zoning classifications from R1 single-family residential and C2 general commercial to R6 multifamily residential. How many of you in the room would like to speak to this ordinance? Raise your hand. Okay. Remember, we only need to hear it one time. So if the person before you says what you have been thinking, maybe you'll just let that one time suffice. I'm not going to deny you if you want to repeat it. I'm just saying sometimes people can get up and say the same thing 5 times. So you're welcome to come at this time. If you are in favor of this ordinance, would you please come at this time? Identify yourself.
My name is Woody Belanger, 3206 West Wimbledon Drive, Augusta, Georgia. I'm pleased to present to you Hamilton Park Apartments. When finished, this will be the nicest rental option in Greenwood. Hamilton Park will be a Class A property with beautiful amenities, pool, clubhouse, outdoor recreation, etc. The people who live here could afford a $250,000 home, but their preferences and situations make apartment living a better option. Multifamily fits here. We're going to hear about the neighborhood. Well, part of the neighborhood. This fronts on Calhoun Road. Calhoun Road is a 4-lane divided highway. It's across from the YMCA. It's literally a 5-minute drive from shops, restaurants, movie theaters, etc. This is where people who come to Greenwood looking for a Class A option would want to live. This is a sizable investment that will result in the kind of housing option that will help Greenwood attract industry. This is the place you'll take them when they go on their tour. In addition, such a complex is a small business by itself. It will employ 4 to 6 full-time employees. It will employ, local contracts will help build it. Local vendors and suppliers service it. Over 300 plus people who call Greenwood home will live there. People with high-paying jobs who pay taxes and depend on you for good government. And these are your constituents too. I'm having to represent them all. Regarding the impact on the neighborhood, I've heard the neighbors' concerns, and I've worked hard in good faith to address them in our plan design. At previous meetings, there have been some confusion about the neighborhood impact of the zoning application and letters that have gone out, and I'd just like to address a few of those. First, this is a Class A property. We don't take government rent subsidies. Residents will be required to meet high standards, good credit, clean background, criminal background check, and proof of income. They have to make 3 times the rent to qualify, and the rents project to be between $850 and $1,250 per month. Second, this project enters and exits on Calhoun Road. It does not front on Langley Road. The zoning ordinance makes it sound like it's Langley Road. It's Calhoun Road. The property adjoins Langley Road, but it doesn't enter and exit on that. There will be only an emergency service exit having a locked gate onto Langley Road with a key kept by the property manager. And we'll make field changes to locate that to wherever it has the least impact on the existing old growth trees that are there. Third, the view from Langley and from Old Abbeville Way will not materially differ if you approve this plan. Remember, it's already zoned for apartments. We're already allowed to build an apartment complex. We're going to build an apartment complex. The question is whether we'll build the one on the right-hand side of the line with the dashed buildings or the one with a slight encroachment with the yellow over that. That's the only difference. And there'll be berms in place in that clear area along Langley Road. When we'll leave old growth trees. We'll move the dog park. I'll talk about that a little bit when I talk about Ms. Collins' child. But we've done everything we can to protect the neighborhood view. I've actually got a picture. Do we have a picture of the view? On the two plans, this is a clear unobstructed view. That's not what you'd be looking at. There'd be berms and trees, and the property sits below Langley Road. But this is imagining standing at Langley Road looking back at the property. On the left is with the zoning approval, on the right is without. I really can't tell much difference. That's the impact we're talking about. And there's no difference at all in the view from the houses from Old Abbeville Road. There's just none at all. Fourth, the increased density will be less impactful than it sounds. In order to achieve this density and to fit it, we try to push it as far as we could over that line to comply with the spirit of the original zoning. And though it will increase the unit count by 34%, it would increase the number of bedrooms by only 11%. In order to get the density, we basically had to take 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units and shrink them down and put 2 bedrooms and 3-bedroom in order to make up for the revenue we'd lose with a lost density. If we get the density, then those 2 and 3-bedroom units will become single bedroom units. And finally, let me talk about Mr. Haney's grandson. He's spoken very passionately in prior meetings. Crystal Collins' child with special needs. I think you call him a trotter, Mr. Haney.
That's correct.
And then a project like this could disturb him. Miss Collins' house is there on the bottom left hand of the paper. You can see the radial lines giving the building distances. We'll be leaving the old growth trees that are there in the corner of the property. The dog park I'll move to the other side so that it won't impact that. And I'm perfectly willing to work with Miss Collins to erect a fence on her property if she'd like it, prior to construction if she'd like that, in order to block that view. So I really try to take all that to heart. I want to talk just a minute about our legal position on this. Again, what's before us now is not whether or not there will be an apartment complex. It's just of what type. I'm arguing it will make a minimal impact on the neighborhood, but it will make a huge impact on the kind of property that we can provide because the amenities are shared, et cetera. And so that it's a big deal to us. Now, we were given a zoning compliance letter that said we had the right to build an apartment complex on the entire site, that it was entirely zoned. That was erroneous. Mr. Lindler and his staff have been very upfront about the mistakes that were made. It's not the fault of anybody in this room. It's not my fault that those mistakes were made. But what I've tried to do is present a good compromise, try to comply with the spirit, keep that back section rural looking and residential looking, and move my apartment complex closer to Abbeville, to Calhoun Road. To squeeze it away, we put the roads on the outside to get the building squeezed through the middle, squeezed it as much as we can to try to make that happen. We've taken an enormous decrease in possible revenue. I think I have a right to build the whole thing, but to me, this is a suitable compromise to work with that. And that's really all I have to say, unless you have any questions for me.
Any questions by council?
Mr. Woody, I did have one question. In regard to Ms. Collins'
Yes.
you talked about construction of fence. I believe in our private meeting that we had, you told me that you would also be willing, if she cared for it to be, to construct that fence on her property.
That's correct. And prior to construction, if that will
And
She'd
that
like
would be an 8-foot privacy fence.
If that's what she'd like. She'd like 6 feet, we'll do 6 feet. She'd like 8 feet.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions?
You may have covered this, but I want everybody in the room to understand. There is a problem with, the letter that you were given, the zoning compliance letter that you were given by the, county zoning staff, before you purchased this property. You were told that all of the property was zoned commercial. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. If I was specifically told I could build 164 units on the site, I had an official compliance letter from the city. We did the right thing. We bought the property relying on that letter. And we're over a year into the process of designing. We were close to knocking down trees and starting on the property when we found out the error happened right before Board of Zoning reviews. Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Mr. Woody, I had the privilege of going out and looking at the property of Mr. Haney's side of the fence. It's got a beautiful pastoral area there. It's very neighborly, friendly. Folks came over and talked. And I understand that, you could build this property here, you can put up whatever you want, but you've made some excellent, I think, compromises. One of the things that Mr. Haney has along here is fence line down his pasture. So he has a stand of beautiful hardwoods all the way down. And I'm thinking, if you're going to build this, is there any way you can preserve those hardwoods? Because they would be a natural screen to keep the view of the apartment complex away from this pastoral scene that's just across the fence. And I feel like if that could be done and you could guarantee to those folks that the environment where they're living is not going to measurably change, that they won't be aware of even an apartment complex over there, that this is a good thing for the county.
Yes, sir. I believe it's a good thing for the county. And yes, sir, there's a 20-foot buffer on the Mr. Haney's side right now. You can see it there. I plan to leave every old growth tree I can. That's to my benefit too. I'll get credit for that. Enhances the site. Anyone that's over the line, I'm definitely going to keep. There's no question. But within that 20-foot buffer, yes, sir. My intention is to keep as many trees as I can.
Well, I would encourage you to do that because I think that adds to the sellability of what you're trying to do.
Yes, sir. And I have offered to Mr. Haney to walk the property line with him so we could flag some of those trees.
Good.
Once we get a common line established and we know where it is, I'd be happy to do that and work with him.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in favor of this zoning change? Zoning request? Anyone else here who would like to speak in favor of this request? Hearing none, then I will ask who is here who would like to speak in opposition to this request. And I see one hand, Mr. Haney. I recognize you.
Thank you. For letting me be here.
You're gonna have to speak up so people can hear you.
Thank you. Thank y'all for letting me be here. I gave y'all something right here. The second sheet, just kind of a sheet showing what a 6-foot fence is gonna hide on a 45-foot, 2.5-inch building. If you leave the trees and hide most of it, 20 feet will not hide a 45-foot tall building. This building's 45 feet tall. Put a 6-foot fence out here, you're probably still gonna see the building. Thank you for thinking about my grandson. That's the most important thing here today. It's his safety and him being able to cope with things and not be locked into all this disturbance over there. If it were a 2-story building, like I've written all the way down Calhoun, all the way out there, boy, 2-story apartments here and there, townhouses, 2 stories were built. I know it's all about the dollar bill for developers. all about heart for the people that still live in this neighborhood. When Woody, I'm sure Woody's a good man, but when he goes back to Augusta, we've still got to look at this stuff up there. I've lived there all my life. Bless will come get me from there if they don't get me from here. But anyway, if we could leave that residential, a 50-foot buffer, which you're asking lots, but he's making a lots out there, and put the fence on his side of the trees. That's all I ask for. Just be considerate. We're not going anywhere. They are. People move out there. 2 years later, they're moving somewhere else. Thank you, each one of you.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you, Mr. Haynes. Yes, sir.
My name is Joe Langley. I live at 120 Pine Tree Drive. I want to thank County Council for the opportunity to express my concern regarding this rezoning request. My interest in the proposed rezoning is I own a 100-acre family farm on Langley Road directly across from the proposed apartment project. Number one, I am well aware that 12.2 acres on Calhoun Road, whether zoned commercial R6, would allow 16 apartment units per acre. My objection to this request is the developer is requesting additional building height and reduced buffer zones. Secondly, I am requesting the 3 acres on Langley Road remain zoned R1. Allowing a zoning change on this 3 acres would be spot zoning at its best. For several generations, my family, well over 100 years, the adjacent home and landowners of the said 3 acre property on Langley Road have constructed and built their homes and farms, taking their neighbors into consideration. Please, as elected county council members, allow the adjacent landowners to be guarded against any forceful zoning change and uphold your zoning committee who recently voted to deny the 3 acres rezoned on Langley Road. Additionally, Langley Road has become a bike riding and walking trail for your constituents. Please ensure the developer permanently eliminates all traffic entering and exiting Langley Road from the apartment project as he states. Thanks again, County Council, for your attention to these requests.
Thank you. Next person. Keith.
I just wanted to voice my, sir,
Name and address.
Keith Sperry, 221 Langley Road.
Thank you.
I live straight across from the apartment complex on Langley, just about where the back entrance is coming out. Lived there all my life. I'm speaking for myself and my 86-year-old mother that lives about a quarter of a mile from here. We request the back portion stay residential. It's a residential road, a residential neighborhood. I just don't see how we can force a multi-family classification on a residential neighborhood. Calhoun, I wholeheartedly believe this should be commercial or residential as like, but the back portion, please keep it residential for a residential neighborhood and the neighbors. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Someone else?
Good evening. I'm Crystal Collins. I live at 204 Langley Road. Just have a few things. I understand that others are pleased to present the idea of this complex and the change to from residential. And I appreciate considerations that have been made for our children, especially Chase. Just the things that I continue to remain opposed to this for the privacy and the safety of my family. We've lived out there 1 year, and that was not what we had anticipated. moving out to our family farm. I would ask that we keep that land residential, and for the remaining land that is going to be commercial, if we could have a higher fence on their land and keep 50 feet of trees, because if we do 25 feet of trees, you're still going to see everything through there. So I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else? Dr. Ackerman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Council. My name is Gray Ackerman, 1714 Old Abbeville Road. I spent the entire morning yesterday going around to every apartment complex that I could locate, mostly around the high school, behind Lakeview, there's newer ones, and everything that I looked at was in the 1 to 1.5 height range, and the only one that I could find in the 3-story range was Regency Park. Now, Regency Park is a kind of a unique development because it is off a 2-lane road, and it has a long drive, and it's on a hilly terrain where the buildings, a lot of the buildings are down low, and then it's kind of terraced and it's spread out. A landscape architect did a real beautiful job designing that, where it's not even noticeable from the road. You don't see it. That's not when you come down Calhoun Road. This thing's going to be 3 stories high. How many people in this room, I wonder, have been to Regency Park to see the massiveness of those buildings and how close they are to each other? They're huge. I got out of my truck and I looked up and I said, I had no clue that these buildings were that high and that massive. I mean, they're huge buildings. And, you know, I don't see how the people, the Haneys, the Collins, particularly them, the Sperrys, I don't see how they even gonna see sun until the afternoon by the time the sun gets up high enough to clear those buildings. Really. The sun rises in the east and their land's on the west side of that. It's gonna be a whole different deal than it is right now. And to the developer, I know it's a numbers game. We got to squeeze in as many apartments as we can get in, but maybe somebody here, and Mr. Limler should be able to tell me at the meeting that I wasn't invited to, but I managed to attend this past week with the developer and some other people, that if they were going to build apartments, no matter what. We're gonna build apartments here, ain't nothing you can do to stop us. All right? That's pretty harsh words coming in from somebody from Augusta. You know, we've been living here hundreds of years. I've been living where I've been living for 30 years and spent every time I got out there trying to stay there. How much decrease was it? And I think it's already been said, but I didn't hear it. Would it be if no more rezoning was done? What would be the decrease in apartment count?
60.
60. Okay, that's a pretty good percentage when we're talking about 264 proposed apartments, when we reduce it down to 200. And we at this meeting, the density count, which is kind of a vague term, was said to be 11% less density. Well, my arithmetic shows a little bit more than 11%. So if somebody's got a calculator, you know, I'd say in the range of 25% less. Something that most people, if they got to live with it, could live with it. You know, as far as my personal opinion, I hadn't got to look at this thing day in, day out. Just every time I ride by it, I'm gonna have to go beside it. When I go to the post office or to Walmart or wherever, I either got to turn left or right at Lyman Road, And I got to put up with the traffic, and I know there's gonna be a stoplight there when this thing gets through. And I can tell you one thing, the people that live out there better get ready for about the next 18 months to hear a lot of hammering and nailing going on, because they're gonna wake up with it, and they're gonna probably just about go to sleep with it during the summer. And it's gonna be a long process getting this thing built, and it's just gonna be a lot of noise, and that noise ain't gonna stop after it's built. Those corridors for 200 to 264 apartments are gonna be closing all night long. People are gonna be going up and down those steps all night long, click, clack, and all the associated noise that goes with the apartment complex. Thank you very much.
I saw somebody back on the right. Somebody, yeah, I recognize you.
How y'all doing? My name's Chip Haney. I thank y'all for y'all's time and everything else.
Give your address.
I live on 306 Rising Road, but I have a place on Old Apple Highway right beside Muffins and Mini Burger. You know, I hope that y'all consider, you know, Crystal's family. You know, and the Sperry's and everybody right there on that area. And, you know, keep that, you know, R1, do not change it. I'd also like the 50-foot buffer with a fence on that side, leaving all the, you know, the old oak trees and growth. And I know how developers are. They'll call and have a bulldozer come in. And, you know, I was out of town. They weren't supposed to take them trees. I would like something in writing to say, hey, you know, this is going to be done. We're not going to take these old growth trees. And, you know, I was sorry it happened and everything like that. You know, we want to kind of keep the farm looking like a farm and not have that in the background. It's just standing out like, you know, sore thumb. You know, it's a lot to ask. I realize that. But that's kind of the things we would like. And another thing, he talks about the industry and everything like that. That's not going to bring in industry. Usually you have industry come in and then people develop, you know, to supply housing for the industry workers. Another thing that kind of pisses me off, and I hate to say that, but he talks about all the work that he gives local contractors and stuff in Greenwood County. They've built before. I know a lot of contractors, know a lot of businessmen. I've never seen one of them on their job. I've never even heard of them wanting to have an opportunity to bid that job. I'm not trying to step on any toes or make anybody mad. I'm just telling the truth. You know, they come in, they got their own crew from Georgia or wherever, and, you know, they bring their supplies from out of town. They don't go to Quarles and buy them or nothing like that. If they need something, they may go buy. I'd like people to consider that during this time. And appreciate y'all's time. Thank you.
Saw somebody on this side. Randy?
Good afternoon. Randy McDaniel, 1611 Old Abbeville Highway. We all bought our property as R1 rural, and this property on Langley Road was made R1 for a reason at the time. I think it should stay the same, mainly because of the density it's going to bring to Langley Road, Old Abbeville Road. I know it's going on to Calhoun. We've said that many, many times, but people are going to take the easy way out. It's going to bring traffic to us. For us, the help in Greenwood, well, they are going to pay taxes, but they're not going to pay property taxes. They're going to pay property on their vehicle, but if it's R1, they're also paying for dwelling. Right now, I think the way the economy is in Greenwood, we don't need to support 260 apartments. It seems like it's more single-family dwelling being built. I'm a contractor, electrical contractor, and I know most likely it won't be one Greenwood contractor that's being hired to build this. just from the past of other apartments in the area. And I just ask you to consider keeping the R1.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Ken Davis, and I live at 819 Old Abbeville Highway. I'm here like one of my neighbors who asked you to not change the zoning of that property on Langley Road. And I'm here to share with you my opinion of why it should remain the way it is. And I'm originally not from here. I'm gonna start wide and we'll come back to this property. See, I'll be over here in a little bit. I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago, and I've been here like 30 years now. I came to Langley University, came on a scholarship there, and I've made Greenwood my home. Now, before I came to the United States to live, I would visit and I'd go to like New York and places like that. And that shaped my view of what America was and what it was like to live here. So you can imagine when I came to Greenwood, it looked so different. And, you know, we always lived off campus in homes, and we had the trees, the quietness. And in those days, we had a Roses and a Walmart on either side of town, so it wasn't a whole lot to it. But, you know, my first year here, I thought I couldn't stay here for 4 years. I was like, this is too different. But after the first year, everything I thought that was different about Greenwood is the things that I came to appreciate about Greenwood and the things that made me still here today. You know, the peacefulness, the quietness, the people, the way it's developed, it just became home. And I have friends and family that live in other places, and they say, man, how are you still there? And I was like, you gotta live here to understand that, you know? And I've seen a lot of development take place in Greenwood over the years. You can imagine. You see even now the downtown area, the 72 bypass and all that, and it's great. You know, you wanna see the area develop, you wanna see it grow, but you wanna see it grow in a systematic way with a good plan. And, you know, where we live, it's kind of amazing because you on 72 there and that stretch is so much going on. And you just get off and you go around there and there's where we are. I didn't even know it existed. 15 years ago, we were looking for a home, and it was hard then to find a single family residential home in an area like that. You couldn't find it. My wife, she kept looking. She calls me one day, she says, I found this perfect home. I said, come on, let's go. Because when you find something, it don't stay long, even today. We drove around there, pulled up in the parking lot. I get out of the car, look across the street, look in the backyard. She's like, come, let's go in the house. I say, you go in the house. I've seen everything I need to see. I knew I was home. You know, it's perfect. You look across there, and you come on in there, we know each other. You see all your neighbors, you know everybody, it's peaceful there. And, you know, had it had that thing there? Probably not. I said, let's keep looking. I'm here to tell you too that, you know, one of the big issues, you know, in Greenwood, if you drive around Greenwood, you see every different types of homes and developments that you need, and that's great. You can find buildings, you can find different types of things. But the one thing that's still hard to find today is single-family residential homes. We had like 3 in our neighborhood that came up maybe over the last couple of years, go like that. I know a lot of people I work with, their homes, they sell it before you can go on the market. There's a real demand for preserving and maintaining those types of neighborhoods in our community. People need it, you know. if you want people to come in, you have to have that type of inventory there available to them when they come looking. As our children grow up, like Crystal and they want to start their families, you have to have those types of property available so they can build something and live and grow too. That's how we're gonna grow the community. You know, years ago, some group had this vision that we're gonna take that property and make it single family residential, and that piece on Langley Road also. They were saying then that they could foresee that Greenwood would need that. That was a vision they had about the Greenwood that they envisioned for all of us to enjoy. That's what they were saying. I know it's hard to say, well, you know, we want to keep expanding, but do it responsibly. They do it in Greenville. It's one of the most sought after places to live in Greenville. I go to Greenville all the time. You be in the city, you go down this road, houses. You go up Woodruff Road, businesses, you go down this road, houses. They have managed to preserve that thing that makes Greenville special, that makes people want to live there. And we have that opportunity to do that here in Greenwood also, by maintaining what we have, the supply, the demand that we have, the lack of supply that we have, and preservation are three things that you have to consider before you change anything. We need this. We need to preserve these things, these types of properties, and cherish them. Encourage it to grow. It's tough, but the decision that you make today is not about putting a building there. When you make a decision today, you're saying to us, to Greenwood County, everybody, this is my vision for Greenwood. This is what I see is important for Greenwood. We need this. And I think that your decision today says how you feel about that. So I thank you for allowing me to come up here. And thank you for the input. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Lee Collins. I live on 204 Langley Road. My property is adjacent to this property that we're discussing tonight. The child that has been referenced tonight is my son, Chase. Chase is 9 years old. He's autistic. I don't know how many people in this room have dealt with autistic children or an autistic person before. With an autistic child, our day-to-day life is always an unknown, because we never know what a new challenge might come into that child's life is. Our previous home was in a very condensed neighborhood area and not necessarily the safest place for him to be. Our desire was to find something that we could have that would be wide open and free and allow him to grow up with the safety in his mind and also the understanding that we don't have to protect him from anything. If this was to be a situation where we have more buildings on this side in a truly strictly residential area, for the people that are working and eventually living on that residential area, on that commercial side area, they won't have to deal with what we have to deal with. Because someone can tell me that I can restrict my child, I can guard my child, I can protect my child. But I don't think a child should have to be a prisoner in his own home. I don't think a child should have to be a prisoner on his own property. He should have the right to enjoy his life with safety and security. And I echo what many have said. I appreciate what has been suggested as compromises. But at the end of the day, we're talking about something that everybody in here except for my family will not have to deal with, is the unknown. It's okay for everybody else to go home and go to sleep and not be able to deal with it. I don't know what's going to come from this from my child. Everyone should have a right to develop and build and live. My child should not have to be a prisoner on his own home. And I feel in my heart that that's ultimately what's going to be, in so many ways, asked of us, is to keep our child restricted and safe from an area which a year ago that we purchased and we bought and was established as a place where we wouldn't have to worry about that. So I would just strongly ask the council to consider that. I know at the end of the day, it's not nothing to do with a dollar bill or growth. But the different growth that we're looking at is my child. And I want my child to feel safe and secure. And there's a lot of people that can promise it, but there's not a lot of people that are living with it, and we are. So I just thank you for considering that today.
Anyone else?
Arthritis is getting all right foot. But anyway, my name is Eddie Coleman. I live on the old Edwardsville Highway and Langley Road, where they all come in together there. And I've been there 73 years in that house. And one of the things I was wanting to address to all of you, and everybody in here, I know everybody has watched the Andy Griffith Show. Everybody. Well, what made it popular was the easy way of living at times was that area out there, the both roads, that's an Andy Griffith community. And so we don't want to lose it. You know, y'all don't want to see that kind of stuff. You want it to be peaceful and all just like it was in Mayberry. And that's what people want here. We want to just keep our community, like everybody else has been saying, a nice place to live and raise your children. That's all we ask, is that these communities stay like this and kind of like Andy Griffith Show on Mayberry. And that's all I got to say. Y'all please take it into consideration before you have your vote and how things will go. But thank you and God bless you all.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Yeah, I would. I'm gonna do my best speaking first time with y'all on this. My name's Devlin Amix. Currently live at 128 Thompson Drive. I grew up on 806 Old Edwardsville Highway, right next door to Jimmy, along with his girls, Chip, all of us growing up back in the 70s and 80s there. I've watched the development behind on Calhoun Road. I can remember as a child hearing all the big land moving equipment coming in, developing that back behind us, all the noise. I'm just really asking for y'all to keep it the same zoning, at least, you know, and also the view. I know at 806 with the Y behind us now, I'm speaking on behalf of my parents too, but with the Y behind us now, during the daylight hours, you hear the noise, you know, the children, that's fine, whatnot, the games. But toward the evening, whenever there's ball games, the lights light up over there on Old Edwardsville Highway. And I'm, you know, it's just the noise. And I know there's going to be growth, but, you know, we can minimize it and keep it like they're saying, the Mayberry style neighborhood, so to speak. So I appreciate y'all letting me speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak? Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Third and final, is there anyone else who would like to speak? Seeing no hands and hearing no voices, then I will close this public hearing. And I will ask council, what is your pleasure? Council, do you need any additional information? Do you need to ask any questions of the planning director? What is your pleasure?
I do have one question, Chairman. Mr. Lemon, much has been made about the three-story aspect of the proposed development. my understanding, I want to make sure I'm right, that 3-story height aspect is within the allowable current zoning. Is that correct?
It's allowed by the Board of Zoning Appeals variance under the current zoning. If the property is rezoned to an R6, then the height restriction there is higher than what's being proposed. So in actuality, either way, they would be allowed to have the 3-story structure that they're proposing.
Any other questions of council?
Make sure I understand, Mr. Chairman. As it's currently zoned, Phil, these apartments can be built there. Is that correct?
Under the C2, yes, sir.
C2. And a lot of other things can be built there as well.
Yes, sir.
How materially is rezoning that in piece? I don't know how many acres it is, but I can't imagine it's large enough to build too many houses on.
It's 15 acres.
Well, could have a neighborhood there. I was wondering how large that piece was, if it is preserved as residential. And I guess the other thing I'm worried about is, even though it's C2, if these folks were to say, we're not gonna build apartments, we're gonna build a lot of other things that are far less attractive, they can do that, right?
Correct. That's right.
Thank you.
Chairman, I'm sorry, but I'm a bit confused. I thought I'd studied this thoroughly. I've never heard, what is 15 acres? I've never heard of 15 acres before just this moment.
The site is 15 acres, and the portion to the, on this side, the more northerly portion, the one that's closest to Langley, is around 4 acres.
Right. I'm sorry. I thought that was confusing to me. I thought Councilman's comments were indicating there was 15 acres of variance. So Phil, my understanding, I want to state this because I want to be very clear and I want to be very transparent in my feelings on this issue, Chairman, before we vote. The variance request and the 20 feet versus however many feet, 30 feet, whatever we've been talking about for several weeks now, is the difference in 2 of 3 buildings being constructed as situated, correct? There are 3 buildings that come into play. 2 of those buildings will be built regardless. And you can ask the developer. I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. 2 of those buildings will be built regardless. So the question really becomes, in what we're being asked to vote on today, will he be allowed to build that 3rd building, correct? It really comes down to 1 building. Is that correct?
Yes, the difference is 1 additional building.
1 additional building.
One building and increased density on that side of the line.
I understand the density issue. So, and this property was zoned commercial, I believe, in 2014.
Yes,
sir. The Langley traffic concern issue, I don't, again, want to make sure I'm clear on this. There will be no routine traffic outlet on the Langley Road. There will only be an emergency exit and, well, a gated emergency exit. There will be no routine access.
That's correct.
Okay. We talked about the special needs consideration, which is certainly dear to my heart. And for you, those of you in the audience, you don't know this, but county council members, with the exception of Ms. Spencer, will remember this. I dealt in my district with a very similar issue with apartments built in Ponderosa, going to be built in Ponderosa Heights. What I don't want to see happen tonight is unintended negative consequences to the neighborhood, as I believed were happening there. And by that I mean, the developer has already moved his parking areas to the outer perimeter of his buildings. Is that correct, developer?
Yes, sir, as you can see.
Which in effect creates more of a buffer, if we want the space, away from Langley Road, correct?
Yes, sir. 105 feet versus 30.
105 feet versus 30 feet. Okay, I don't have any more questions. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Please, you know, the time for y'all to speak is closed. I can't recognize you, Jimmy.
Mr. Chair.
Let's, okay, I'm gonna make something, so go ahead.
Okay, you wanna do yours first?
You
But I
gonna
just
make a
wanna-
motion?
No, I'm just gonna share a story.
Sure, go ahead.
I know you're probably wondering, do any of us, have the same situation that you're having, or have had the same situation that you all are dealing with? I have. Down on the 96 highway, probably about 15 or 20 years ago. And, we were informed that they were going to build a housing development in our area. Which I thought housing development, not so bad. But let me tell you what the situation was. We were not going to be given an option. What the developer planned to do was to build the whole entrance and the outlet directly in our neighborhood. Not on the side, directly through our neighborhood. So, what we did, we found us an attorney that was very good in helping us to iron the situation out. It took them 5 years to build that project. But we were not gonna let that go until they agreed to do something for us. And all we asked them to do was to build the entrance road from the bypass, which is bypass 221. They didn't want to do that. But because we held the property, because we held them up, then all of a sudden, they got the money to build the road from bypass 22. But right now, if there anything that happens in that area, if those folks decide to cut the fence and come in our neighborhood, all I have to do is go to the housing authority and they have to come out and fix the whole fence. Right now, they've already put cameras there that's been there for the last 3 or 4 years, and that's what keeps us with them and their agreement. So do I understand? Yes, I understand. Is it hard? Yes, it's hard. But you all are different from us because you have a developer want to work with you guys. They ain't want to do anything for us. It's just what we say. So that's the difference. You have somebody that want to work with you all. And that's good because we did not have that. But right now, if anything happens down there and I see a whole bunch of them walking through our neighborhood, I go right down through there and find out where they came from. And then I go report it, and they have to come out and fix the thing or do what they need to do. I'm just talking about me and my situation. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Spencer, you wanna ask a question or say something?
I was just listening to all the different comments, and especially with the child when they said, "Have you ever been around somebody that had an autistic child?" I've been on both sides of the fence. I've been where I was in an apartment complex, and actually my sister and I was taking care of a girl, a female that was autistic. And the difference I seen in that was that at that time we were a family, because it wasn't just that family in that apartment building. It was family with everybody that was around, and we was able to watch. Now I've gotten grown, I'm on my own, and I have my own dwelling place. I've been around to Greenville. I looked at apartments called Innovations. I've been in Augusta, and I went around town looking at the apartments too. There are a lot of people that don't have anybody in an apartment complex, moving an apartment complex around other people. To them, that can be family. I realize that you may not agree with me, but I be around people from a lot of neighborhoods, and even working in the hospital in healthcare. I see a lot of that. So there's a advantage to you and there's a disadvantage. The disadvantage is you feel like you're gonna lose your quiet space, and you're gonna lose with the buffer, you're gonna lose having what you had for years. But we also have to recognize that change comes. We can't really do anything about it. It's just like Ms. Child spoke and like the developer, these apartments are coming. Now, whether you want to be at a distance that you want, we can't control that, but they are coming. We're doing economic developments. We have projects that are coming. We have things coming to Greenwood, And I've been on both sides of the fence, so I can, understand what you're saying on one side, but at the same time, I also understand that sometimes what we see as a menace and a mess is a blessing to somebody else, because some people don't have other family members. And when you're in an apartment complex, that's family to them.
Good point. Anything else? Let me just make a few statements. I believe that developer is an honorable man. I've been in several meetings with him, and I have a favorable impression. And you may say, well, maybe you're easily impressed. I've been in meetings with a lot of developers, and some of them have impressed me and others have not. But this gentleman here seems to be a man of his word. I think he has offered to you folks some very generous concessions. I don't live out there, and won't live out there. At least I don't think I will. So his concessions are your considerations. I think he's tried to address some of the concerns, and I think he's done it as much as he can and still maintain the integrity of his project. He has a zoning compliance letter signed by the Greenwood County staff that told him before he ever put a dime down on this property that all of the property, including this 15 acres, was zoned commercial. He did not come here and undermine anybody or lie to anyone or try to go behind someone to get his project to become a reality. He did his homework and he went to the right people. He was just given some erroneous information. And it appeared that someone failed to code it in on our GIS system. So when the planning staff looked at the mapping system, it showed it as all commercial. That's the county's problem. That's a legal problem to the county. My other concern is that in 2014, I sit here at this desk, and we listened to you folks speak to us when the property was rezoned. The larger portion of the property was rezoned commercial, and the 15 acres was left to be residential. Many of you in this room came and supported that because of the fact that the 15 acres was going to remain residential. Because of our decision in 2014, Crystal and Lee Collins went to the county building department and got a building permit based upon the fact that they believed that the property beside where they were going to build their house was residential. They had no reason to believe otherwise because we had taken legal action to rezone it to residential. Now they're being told because of a mistake by a staff person that it could possibly be changed to something else. And while I could probably vote either way on this matter and feel good about it, I could justify there's reasons to vote yes, there's reasons to vote no. I have concern when good, hard-working people base their decisions upon governmental actions, and then after they base those decisions on our actions, then we come back and say, no, that's not the way it is. We've already given these folks a compliance letter, and it's not what you thought. I doubt, and I haven't talked with Crystal and Lee. I did talk with Jimmy, but I haven't talked with Crystal and Lee. I doubt if that entire tract had been commercial, they would have built that house there. That bothers me. I have grave concerns. Now, may I make a public confession? I am related to some of these folks that live out there. Jimmy Haney's and Crystal and Carmen's mother, Jimmy Haney's wife and Crystal and Carmen's mother is my first cousin. She's deceased now. So I declare that up front. But I'm not voting because I'm related to them. I'm voting because I want to be faithful to my 2014 vote, and I want to do right by everybody that lives out there. Whichever way I vote, somebody's going to be disappointed, but I don't want anybody to leave this room and think this man here is not a good man and a good developer. Somebody made a statement in the last meeting that we don't need apartments like this in Greenwood. That's not true, folks. I go to economic development meeting, and everybody is saying housing, housing, housing. When they bring in people from overseas and they need to put them up on a temporary basis, they're asking for these apartments. So I think there's a need. And we've already talked about he's going to be able to build certain ones on this property regardless of what we do. The thing that you need to realize tonight and be perfectly clear, if we vote to deny this, then he has to make a decision if he wants to go the legal route and have someone else declare that we gave him this letter and deemed it to be buildable. That will be his decision. But if he is able to go to court and the judge says, Greenwood County, you can't stop him from building on this property, he doesn't have to give you any of those concessions that he's been willing to give you tonight. And that bothers me. That scares me to death. That means if he wins in court, then he can put traffic back out on Langley Road. And I'm not trying to convince you folks to get back up and tell us to vote for it. I'm just wanting you to know what's going to happen. And as long as we're all clear, then we can move forward. But that's my statement. You can agree with me or disagree with me, but I have real concerns about Lee and Crystal buying that property and believing the county had zoned it to residential. And they built this nice house. I've been out there, I looked at it, hadn't been in it, but it's a nice house. And I don't believe they would have built it if they had thought it was all commercial. Anybody else have a comment?
Chairman,
Anybody else have a question?
I do have a comment, Chairman, and my comment is that is exactly, to your point, what I was trying to state when I said unintended consequences. And I do not want to see you people on Langley Road who believe that your passion and your intent in this open forum is going to get you something that it may not get you. You may lose everything. So again, in full transparency, I intend to vote in support of allowing the developer what he has asked for, but I'm doing it with the belief that Chase will be protected. I have a son with autism. I live that every day. And secondly, that you don't see a primary access point come to Langley Road, which could happen. And three, that those buildings gonna get pushed back and remove what is potentially now a greater buffer. So I'm being totally and 100% transparent with you all here. Hope you don't think I'm the bad guy, but that's where I am on this. Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Templeton, I have not heard anything from you. I will allow you to speak if you wish. Hearing nothing, then I don't guess he desires to speak. The floor is.
He might be frozen.
Huh?
Man, there are some connection issues. Let me come back to him. Give me 1 second.
We had a virtual meeting the other day, and I'm sitting at my house in Carnaca, bring the meeting to order, sitting at my dining room table, have the invocation, do all of the stuff that we do up front, and then my CenturyLink internet goes out, and I never get back in the meeting the rest of the meeting.
Okay,
so
I'll leave
hopefully we won't do that tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Templeton, do you have anything before we ask for a vote?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I would entertain.
I was going to make another comment too, if you don't mind.
No, sir, go right ahead.
You mentioned fear, and my fear for these folks is similar to yours. If we deny this rezoning, then the developer is going to have to compress everything he does. And that's going to take away from the value of what he's proposing. And I'm fearful for what could be there. Where they have a luxury kind of complex, it could be reduced down to something that's very menial very pedestrian, and something that would attract all kinds of folks who don't make anywhere near $250,000. And that scares me for you, because that will impact this pastoral community you have with an influence that I don't think any of you are looking to have out there. So my leaning is, because of what he's proposing and because it is upscale and it's first class, it can only add to the property value, or at least the environment is kept the same. And so rather than put you in a box and deny the right to zoning, I think I'm gonna have to vote to go ahead and rezone this area to give you the space to do what I believe that in your heart you're going to do for these folks. Thank you.
Council, the floor is open for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I so move that, we move forward.
Well, let me state, the motion that you are putting on the floor is that the second reading of this ordinance be approved.
Yes.
And if that vote is successful, then the property would be rezoned from R1 and C2 to R6 multifamily. That's your motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Spencer. Is there any further discussion? Are there any comments? Questions? Are you ready to vote? The motion on the floor is to rezone 15.2 acres owned by TCA LLC located at 212 Langley Road from R1 single family residential and C2 general commercial to R6 multifamily. I have a motion by Ms. Childs and a second by Ms. Spencer. All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed? Mr. Templeton, your vote?
I'm in opposition, Mr. Chairman.
You're in opposition, so that makes it 4-2. The second reading is adopted. You folks are welcome to stay with us, or we'll give you a few minutes to leave if you would like.
I heard you had an autistic child.
Yes, sir, I did. 25 years old. I'll hold that until.
20, I promise you, 20 foot buffer. When you put parking lot in there, 20 foot. 20 foot. I wish you'd come out here. I invited you. Come on.
No, you did.
Please come. It's too late now, but come.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Take care of yourself.
I said, I don't know why we have to pay.
Take care. The next public hearing is ordinance 2020-11, which provides for the adoption of the budget beginning July 1, 2020, operating and capital budgets for the operation of the government of Greenwood County. That is the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to this ordinance? Is there anyone here who would like to speak in opposition to this ordinance? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and ask council, what is your pleasure? This is second reading approving the 2021 budget.
Move we adopt it, sir.
Motion by Mr. Moats, second by who? Ms. Childs? Any further discussion? All in favor? Mr. Templeton?
I'm in favor, sir.
Thank you. Motion carried. The next ordinance is 2020-12, provided for a levy of taxes for educational purposes in Greenwood County. This is for year July 1, 2020 and to June 30th, 2021. This public hearing. Is anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this ordinance? Anyone here who would like to speak in opposition to this ordinance? I'll close the public hearing and ask council for their action.
Mr. Chair, I so move that we accept.
Ms. Childs gives us a motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Mr. Moats. Any further discussion? All in favor? Mr. Templeton?
Aye, Mr. Chairman.
6-0 vote. Next item of business is third reading, ordinance 2020-08, which amends the village and cottages at Palmetto Crossing Plan Development District, being ordinance 2018-13, so that the Plan Development District Master Plan will allow a pavilion and golf cart parking. This is third and final reading. What is your pleasure, council?
Move to approve, Chair.
Motion by Mr. Lang to approve.
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Spencer. Any questions, comments? Ready to vote? All in favor of the motion? I have 1, 2, 3. Mr. Templeton?
Aye.
That is 4 votes in favor of the motion, all opposed. And we have 2 in opposition. The motion passes 4-2. That is final reading, Mr. Gilbert. We have second reading, which is ordinance 2020-19, authorizing the execution and delivery of a First Amendment to the fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes agreement by and between Greenwood County and Felix Greenwood Incorporated. It adds additional real property as a part of the project under the fee agreement and other matters relating thereto. This is second reading. Public hearing will be at third reading. What is your pleasure, council?
Move to approve, Chair.
Motion by Mr. Lang to approve.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Mr. Templeton. Any further discussion? All in favor? And Mr. Templeton? Aye. The motion is carried. That's second reading. We also have ordinance 2020, which authorized the execution and delivery of a fee in lieu of tax and incentive agreement between Greenwood County and Velux for one or more affiliates and other project sponsors. The county shall covenant to accept certain negotiated fees in lieu of ad valorem taxes with respect to the establishment and/or expansion of certain facilities in the county. This is second reading? Second reading, do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Moats. Second by Ms. Childs. Now, are there any questions? This is piggybacking on the prior ordinance.
No.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Mr. Templeton?
Aye.
And it's 6-0. Under new business, we have consideration of H-tax application for the Hodges Cokesbury Fire Department in the amount of $10,599. You couldn't squeeze out that other dollar. $10,599 for expenses related to the Hodges Hoedown and Fall Festival. Tammy Baber.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Brown and Council, for having us back again this year. I'm Tammy Baber, Festival and Events Coordinator for the Hodges Cokesbury Fire Department. We're here today asking for your help in funding our annual Fall Festival. Wait a minute. That sounded very similar to the start of my presentation last year, but let's make no mistake. This year is quite different. As Katie Couric stated in a graduation commencement speech, there are 2 words that many of us have been thinking for weeks now. This sucks. COVID-19 has become our vision. Let's take a look. Community. We are working on ways to keep everyone safe while keeping an eye on our economy and doing what is best long-term for our community, county, and state. Organization. We are mapping out ways to social distance by staying 6 feet apart within our craft and food vendor areas. Visual aids. We will have signage throughout the grounds and in our bathroom areas that will reference several CDC guidelines, such as how to sanitize and wash your hands properly and safely. Inspire. Our hope for our guests is to not look at this as just a new normal, but a better normal, and have fun doing it. Dedication. Nobody really knows what the next period looks like, but whatever we do, we must keep strides to move forward. Our focus is on what we still have and not what we've lost. Let's be essential. Friday is our first responders night. We will have live music by the Jake Bartley Band, but the highlight will be with our Lights on Main. All fire, police, and emergency vehicles will line Main Street and hit their lights and sirens promptly at 9:11 p.m. as we honor the fallen and the frontline workers helping fight the pandemic. Saturday, we'll kick the morning off with a new event, a 5K run-walk sponsored by Hodges Elementary. This will be followed by our second annual parade with hopes to capture the attention of all ages. You can then enjoy performances by local dance academies, chorus groups, and more. Be sure to catch the Classic Car Cruise In, and later that day, we will have live music again by several entertainers. New to the stage this year is O'Doul Rules, followed by Jacob Etter as Elvis. Our headliner Saturday night will be Bad Weather States. There will be plenty of barbecue and other food choices that I'm sure will be a hit. Now for your part. The amount of our budget that qualifies for H-Tax is $10,599. To the right, you can see the breakdown of this cost split between advertising and other qualifying items. To date, we've tentatively raised $4,500. With your financial support, we hope to make this free, 2-day, outside, open-air event a success. And like with the finish of any great round, the 19th hole calls for a celebration. Thanks for your time and your consideration in funding our community event. And as they say, we're all in this together.
I have one question.
Absolutely.
Some folks are, I think it's scheduled for September, you said.
Correct.
Some folks have come to us that had planned events and said they have cut back, they have reduced what they're going to do. And they're not going to need as much money as they had asked us last year, either A-tax or hospitality tax. My question to you would be, not knowing what the future holds as far as COVID-19 and how that will impact the ability to have such an event, the timeliness of making a payment to you until you get that final okay to go ahead and have such an event. Is there something that you've got to spend up front that you need the money immediately?
The advertising is the big thing.
Okay. Well, that kind of nullifies what I was thinking about, maybe holding on to the money until you knew for sure.
But advertising is only $2,100.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what council will do, but if they approve this, then I would ask that you work with the county staff to kind of draw down exactly what you need to pay your current bills. Because some of these people are having to pay us back monies. I don't think you want to get into that condition. So if it's approved, then maybe what you need to do is just ask for what you have a current invoice for, and then make sure you don't get where you have to return some of the money. Council, any questions by you?
Tammy, remind me how much we approved for you last year?
$7,000.
7,000.
Yeah, the check was cut for $7,000. We had asked for a little over $6,000, and you guys were very gracious.
What's pushed you another $3,500 in your tax dollar need?
Well, the total of the festival is right around $16,000. The 10.5 is what qualifies. There are within those qualifications this year, the festival T-shirts to advertise. Those are added in there. But for the most part, it's about the same.
But The only difference is last year you all raised money to pay for those things, to offset those things. Because the
Correct.
elements are the same, is that what you're telling me?
Correct. The elements are all the same. It's just, with the businesses getting donations, the contributions is gonna be tougher this year.
Yeah, that's,
What's the festival t-shirts deal? What is that about? You give away t-shirts?
We have them for our staff, and just so they're bright colors, and HCFD, Greenwood County
Oh, like you got them?
is noted on the back. Yeah, this is one of last year's, just to make us stand out if people have questions or
need
if
help.
there's any emergency situations, just so we can be identified.
How many will that take care
Ma'am?
of? How many will that take care
I want to say the $1,200, that's 2 t-shirts per person, and we ordered right at 30 t-shirts last year for volunteers and, for the staff and for volunteers to help throughout the day for the 2 days.
wait a minute,
Correct.
60 total t-shirts?
Right, we had a orange for Friday night and then a neon yellow for Saturday.
So they're running about $20 a piece. Well, you
Any
certainly,
other questions?
you certainly do the best job of presenting on any festival I've just come before us in my time, Ted. Good job.
I think if COVID gets better and you're able to hold it, I know of nothing that would be any better for our community being able to come together. And so, I mean, and you're doing it in a cool time of the year, not the hottest time of the year. So, if somebody makes a motion and we get a second, I'll vote. Let me ask the manager, do we have the money?
Mr. Chairman, this is actually being the next budget year, and in the FY '21 budget, you haven't allocated any of the $90,000 that we're anticipating. Only concern would be if the receipts of H-Tax actually reach the amount that it typically does. But you still have a very strong fund balance even if it doesn't. So I think financially you're fine.
Did we allocate, Mr. Manager, did we allocate all the money in this current budget year? Did we burn through all of it?
No, the treasurer and I were talking about that this morning, or this afternoon.
So we're carrying some of it?
We're gonna carry a little over, what do you think, Kathy? 60 to 80, somewhere in that range probably, is where we're gonna carry over. 50.
Yes,
50,
yeah, 60.
yeah, 56, somewhere in that area is what we think we're gonna carry over.
Then, I'd entertain a motion that we approve this.
I move to approve, Chair.
Mr. Lane, second by Mr. Moats. Any questions? All in favor? Mr. Templeton?
Aye.
Thank you.
Can I come up there and get a
Thank
t-shirt?
Yes, you sure can.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Tim.
I hope everything works with COVID, you can do it.
I do. We need it.
We have 2 recommendations for tax district commissioners, Benny Thomas and McKellar Farms and Joseph Key and Saddle Hill have been recommended through the county treasurer's office. What is your pleasure?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Ms. Childs,
Second.
second by Ms. Spencer. All in favor, and those commissioners are approved. We have some ordinances in first reading and title only. Ordinance 2020-14 to amend Greenwood County zoning ordinance being ordinance 1386, which owns one parcel of land, 31.57 acres, owned by Mill Properties at 4802 96 Highway from AG1 to I1 Light Industrial. Mr. Manager, since we have been skipping our administration and finance, is it proper for Phil to kind of give us a brief summary on this, even though it's first reading and title?
That'd be great, Mr. Chairman.
Phil, if you'd like to do that, so council will at least have an idea of what we're taking first reading on.
Sure, this is a request by US Biomass LLC. It is the old Sloan plant in 96. The Adams plant that is just next door to it has been utilized for a number of years. However, this is the property as shown here that's on the eastern side of the property. That is 31 and a half acres. The request is to utilize the site as a manufacturing, business. And in order to do so, they would need the I-1 zoning, in order to move forward with that. Planning Commission recommends approval, on the request. I'm glad to answer any questions you have.
Does this include both plants?
No, sir, it is just the property that's outlined.
What is the
South
other
City.
plant zone?
It is agricultural. We investigated as to why that plant would not have required rezoning, just because it is a recycler of nature, and so that is allowed use within the agricultural zone, but not what this business is wanting to do.
Would light industrial prohibit recycling?
No, and we, when we sent the notifications out to the properties, we asked if they would like to be included in the request, and we have not received any comments from them if they want to be included. But as of right now, it's just 31 and a half acres.
Council,
That's just what happened.
do we,
With,
would we like for
Travis
people to reach out with a phone call to Mr. Munford? Was he asking a question?
No, I think he doesn't realize he's not.
You're live, Robbie.
Would it be proper for you to make a phone call to Mr. Munford and see, and maybe by second or third, if council wants to include his property?
I'd be happy to.
I mean, just make sure that he's aware of what's going to be done.
That's a great idea.
Okay. All right, that's entitled only, first reading. I don't think we have any other zoning matter. Ordinance number 2020-15, which authorizes the execution and delivery of a fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes and special source revenue credits by and between Greenwood County and Project Wood and other of its affiliated entities. It authorizes the inclusion of certain project sites in a multi-county business park, authorizes special source revenue credits and other matters. This is first reading and title only. I guess we could wait until the second reading and have a thorough explanation of the recommended tax incentives.
Mr. Chairman, we can waive it, or I can tell you now, I've had the county attorney, who's obviously not here tonight, give me the notes of what she would say, so I can read for you what she would say, or we can wait 2 weeks.
Well, go ahead and give us some.
Okay. This is a new project in the 96 area. It is $5.6 million investment, 31 jobs. What is being considered by council is a 15-year FELO agreement with a 10-year 25% SSRC. The next item on your agenda is the inducement resolution for this ordinance. The town council 96 has supported the project and is indicated by a vote that's recorded in the town 96 minutes several weeks ago.
Any questions of the county manager? The next item is resolution 2020-15, which is preliminary approval for certain incentives to induce a company identified as Project Wood to establish manufacturing facilities in Greenwood County, including a negotiated fee in lieu of ad valorem tax, including the project within the Washington County Industrial or Business Park, special source revenue credit, identifying the project and other matters related thereto. And you just heard the explanation from the manager on the resolution, but we need to vote on this resolution. What is your pleasure, council?
Move to approve, Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Lane, second by Mr. Moats. No further discussion, all in favor? Mr. Templeton?
Aye.
Thank you. Any other matter that I may have?
You did not get a vote on the appointment to special tax district. We didn't get a vote from Mr. Temple.
Oh, I
Got
didn't.
some votes, but it didn't.
Yeah, I thought he said he approved. On the special tax commissioners? Didn't you vote on that? Didn't you vote on that, Ms. Madam Clerk?
I did not
He
hear
did,
you.
number 5 votes. He did.
We didn't call him.
Right, he did.
Skipped over.
Well, I don't know what the proper thing to do is, but Mr. Templeton, what is your vote on appointing those commissioners?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Got it. Aye. Got it. Thank you. Any other matter we need to take care of?
Mr. Chairman, we addressed this issue, but during the budget, Kathy has a presentation to give you more detail if you'd like it. If not, she can wait till third reading or she can email it to you.
since we have one member missing, I think it'd be better if we were all here and she could do it one time and not have to do it multiple times. How about that? Is that okay? Let's go to district reports, Ms. Childs.
I'd just like to remind all of us that we just pray for each other and pray for our community. And also to remind you that the COVID-19 free testing will be Thursday, June 11th, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And they'll be there until all the testing have run out. It'll be held at the Little River Multicultural Complex, 415 Ryder Road, and that's up in Harvard. So that's open to the public, so if anybody wanna come for free testing, they can come. You do not have to have symptoms. You can just be tested because you want to be. Okay? Thank you.
Ms. Spencer?
No report, but I also want to ask that we continue to keep our nation in prayer since it's so sensitive right now. So much going on, we can never get enough of that. So let's keep our nation in prayer.
Mr. Modes?
I echo what Ms. Spencer says. We need to really seriously think about ourselves, think about our community, and especially those of us who are white. I don't think we realize even close to what it is to live in this country and to be afraid of a policeman simply because of the color of your skin. It's horrible. And I think it's time for offering lip service when justice and fairness is flatly over. I think time of offering to pretend respect and kindness to those of other races is over. It's time for us to engage in building, individually and corporately, the just and fair society for all of our community and all of our citizens, and especially those in the Black community, and do it with the utmost dedication and sincerity. Frankly, if we don't do that, God help us. That is my report.
Mr. Templeton?
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
You can.
Okay, I just wanted to say that, echo the comments from Spencer, all is well in District 6. I did want to say that a good friend of mine's mother passed away with COVID this morning, as a matter of fact. So I would ask that you remember he and his family in your prayers. Thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you. Mr. Lane?
Certainly echo all the comments made, Chairman, in regard to the state of our nation and the crisis that we've been dealing with. I agree with Pastor Moats that we have, before change can occur in this world, we have to individually commit ourselves to change. It seems that on the back side of the COVID virus and all the misfortunes that brought, particularly economic, to see other Americans destroying buildings and businesses and whatever for any reason, it just, I think, highlights the level of misunderstanding and the level of distrust. So again, I think that we have to work as individuals to do all that we can do. And I'm very proud that I feel like here in Greenwood County, we do that every day. I really believe that we do. So God bless us all, and hopefully that we will emerge stronger in the aftermath of this. Thank you.
Well, I think all of us have been thinking about this situation. I don't know of a person that I know that doesn't think the situation in Minneapolis and the situation in Georgia is horrendous. It ought to make us all sick, no matter what our background is and our ethnicity or whatever. Those situations cannot be tolerated, and I feel it gives me almost an unclean feeling. But one of the readings that I've run across and thinking about this, just made a simple comment. for us as individuals to think about using our relationships and our skills and our knowledge to make a difference in the world in which we live. And often, I don't know about you, but often I'm encouraged by others to say one person can't make a difference. But if I don't try to use what I have to make a difference, then how can I look at somebody else and say, why aren't you doing it? So every day I encounter somebody who is African American, I encounter somebody who is Hispanic, I encounter somebody who holds different positions, I encounter somebody who's different than I am. And that's where it all starts, is with that situation. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I don't condone a lot of things that people are doing that say they are supporting what has happened or opposing what has happened. But our community does need to have healing. And we as individuals need our relationships healed, and we need to look at everybody in the right way. It's sad that we all go to church on Sunday, and then sometimes Monday through Saturday we act like heathens. And I've been taught since a little boy that we can think different and act different and be different. I put something on my Facebook the other day that said people are not taught to hate. I mean, people are not born with hate in their heart, they're taught to hate. And if they can be taught to hate, they can be taught to love. And I think that's what we're all about. The other thing that I would bring to your attention, you may already know this, but Chief Gerald Brooks has submitted his intent to retire to the city manager. And I think it's his intent maybe to retire at the end of June. So I don't know how long, whether they'll have an interim police chief for a period of time until they decide. But I talked with him on the phone. I do know it's true. I've confirmed it with him. And he said there's nothing wrong. He said I'm 66 years old and I just need to spend some time with my family that I haven't been able to. So the chief intends to retire at the end of June. So bring that as information to you. Mr. Manager?
Nothing to report, Mr. Chairman.
Clerk of Council?
No report.
Thank you. We don't have any need to go in executive session. So unless there's something else, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good job.